So I want to first this evening talk about the professional certificate and medical legal aspects of healthcare. This arose out of a demand. We had always, in many of our courses, obviously discussed medical legal aspects of healthcare, but the program specifically arose from people's need to have a more detailed interest in the medical legal aspects of healthcare, which we've always dealt with, but we never had a particular qualification in this respect. So we wanted to allow people who work in the areas of clinical risk management, patient safety, claims handling, to be able to leave UCD with a specific qualification in some of the core areas where medicine intersects with law. So the professional certificate commenced about 3 years ago, and we cover a number of topics, and we cover them in great detail. And you can see in the slide before you, we first of all, because the professional certificate lives within the graduate diploma for health care risk management, and I'll explain the structure of the program towards the end of our talk today. But we look at issues in terms of an introduction to clinical risk management and how out of that arise problems in relation to legal issues. And then we get into those legal issues, and again, when I get to talk about the structure, I'll explain to all of you how the program has worked and how it will work, perhaps with a few differences from September onwards. But the main areas that we cover are the type of areas that you're either afraid of, have dealt with, or have some experience of, or are dreading having experience of. And that's why, in fact, we really want to get into them in the fullest way possible. I know some of the attendees have your hands up. If you have a message that you need to give, would you just put it into the chat program? For example, if you can't hear me, would you please let me know so that we can just continue this program? And if there's an immediate issue, we'll deal with that immediately. So if you wouldn't mind just sort of getting into the chat, and we'll then allow you to talk, if that's okay. So we're going to look at principles of medical negligence. And when I say we're going to look at it, we look at it from two perspectives. We first get into the substantive areas of the law. What exactly is medical negligence? How does it work? So what are the legal issues that run behind it? We also look at it from a practice perspective. So on the course, and the ethos of our course is really to throw you in at the deep end and allow you to interact with people who are in the profession. So you're going to have people who practice in the area of plaintiff medical negligence and also defense medical negligence. And we have some of our leading lawyers who come onto the course to talk to you about their perspectives, to try and give you a very balanced overview of all of the issues, and to allow you the time, the comfortable time, to be able to talk to people in the area. And you're not always going to agree with what people say because you'll have a particular perspective, but that's the idea and the ethos of our course, that you get the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of insight from all angles of what is a very complex area of medicine and law, and you get the chance to live and experience people's perspectives and then be able to make a judgment that is relevant to your own experience. We will deal with issues of patient consent, and again, we spend a long time. A lot of the sessions are 3-hour sessions, 1.5 hours with a little break in the middle, another 1.5 hours, to really be able to get into the depth, the in-depth detail of some of the areas. We don't really do anything in a flippant way. Often what will happen is we simply run out of time because the students, all of you hopefully, are such a talkative bunch and you bring so much to the table in terms of your experience that we try and tangle and tease through problems, and that's something we have always encouraged from day one. Confidentiality, privacy, data protection. As I said, we look at medical litigation issues from the plaintiff and the defendant perspectives. We have a number of people who deal with fitness to practice, both the medical counsel and the lawyers who represent the medical counsel and others, to talk about fitness to practice and professional regulation, which, as many of you will know, is for professionals, a worrying issue, because increasingly we are all under the scrutiny of regulators. So what is important in terms of the practical aspects of dealing with this area, and how to be prepped and ready for any allegation that might come our way. The coroner's court, and again, many of you may have experience of the coroner's court, and one of the coroners will usually come into us to discuss the workings of the coroner's court. And then we will spend a session looking at the practical aspects of expert witnesses and giving evidence in court and the appropriate approach to medical litigation if you're involved as a witness or an expert witness as well. It's important to let you know that apart from you have a number of people teaching on the course, you have practicing barristers, practicing solicitors, other people involved in the claims perspective, and as I said, other stakeholders, which we'll talk about as well, but really all people who are involved in the working area at the intersection between law and medicine. That includes judges, and I'll come onto that shortly. We also looked then at some of the medical ethical issues relating to beginning and end of life, medical research, and also other medico-ethical aspects of law and medical ethics in a very practical and hands-on way, so that you hopefully will leave the lectures with a huge amount of scope for thought. That's just very basically some of the overview of some of the areas that we will cover. What will you learn? Well, again, some of you will have looked at our website, and it's important to sort of really tell you the kinds of things that we're trying to demonstrate and the types of things and subjects you'll learn. This course provides the tools for clinical and managerial healthcare professionals and also lawyers. So over the last few years, we've had a number of lawyers, including lawyers from the various state agencies who are involved in medical negligence cases on both parts of the programs, the certificate program and also the graduate diploma. It'll be very interesting to those involved in the medical legal aspects of healthcare and risk management. The award and the manner in which the program is structured, those who enter the professional certificate only, if they choose to leave in December, will leave with the professional certificate in medical legal aspects of healthcare. Those who have registered for the graduate diploma program will continue in December onto the graduate program, the diploma program, which commences in January. And for those who have registered only for the professional certificate program, but at the end or thereabouts in December decide they wish to continue onto the graduate diploma, they will then have to register for the graduate diploma, and dependent on results can transfer from December into January, and you will then continue on to the graduate diploma in healthcare risk management and quality. So it's an appropriate qualification for professionals practicing in the medico-legal fields of healthcare, clinical risk management, patient safety, and in addition to, and as part of your work, or anybody who has an allied interest in medico-legal aspects of healthcare. It'll be of great use to a number of people involved in the area. What are we trying to do, and what are the aims of our course? Well, again, to equip students with vital general and specialist knowledge of the main core medico-legal aspects of healthcare. It enables students to be able to present their ideas with coherence, and I'll come back to the ethos of the course shortly. Those who work in the specialist healthcare environment, dealing with professional aspects of medical law and the medical legal aspects of healthcare, again, in a very practical perspective, us remembering that you're working at the really the cold face of medicine, and to enable and to give you the awareness and tools you need to be able to deal with the issues that will come across your desk and your work practices on a very regular basis. And again, we utilize a mix of teaching methodologies, also personnel, experts and practitioners in the fields of law, governance and medicine. And we do this by way of continuous lecture contact, assessment evaluations and group discussions. And I'll talk a little bit more about that during the course of the evening. Our emphasis and our ethos is on the practical application of knowledge. Inherently, the course allows for this because we haven't moved to the monthly model of diploma teaching, which many universities and organizations have. In other words, you have a 2-day monthly attendance on the campus. This course has now been going on for in excess of 20 years. I think it's in fact approaching 25 years, and we regularly take feedback from our students. In fact, we take feedback on every single lecture session and session we have ever done with students, and regularly, apart from feedback of every individual lecture, we have often kept in touch with our students to ask them how they best learn. And most of our students on a very regular basis have come back to us and said, even though this is a large commitment to effectively be available every Wednesday evening, it is what has kept them going, because you bring the issues that are occupying your mind to the table every Wednesday. Sometimes you'll vent, sometimes you'll chat, sometimes the very issue that we are talking about or discussing in the lecture is the trouble that you come with to the class, and that allows for often very lively discussions, and that's something we have always encouraged. Which means you may be very tired by the end of the course simply because you are barraged with your own experience, your lived experience of some of the issues allied to what we discuss. But that's what has appealed to so many students over the years in relation to this particular course. And we stand by that very confidently. As I say, we're privileged and lucky enough to have experts on hand who have been very supportive of the course, and you're going to have the benefit of their experience in their discussions with you. They learn from you and you will learn from them, and that's a very dynamic exchange between the teacher and those willing to be taught, and it's something that we regard as really a sort of a sacred bond between the group, and it's something that we protect at all costs. The course is taught by barristers, by solicitors, by doctors and leading stakeholders, and it includes input by judges of our superior courts who use blended learning methodologies, lectures, discussions, roundtable sessions. And of course, it goes without saying that there's a slight difference in how things are going to go from September onwards because of a certain thing called COVID-19. As all of us appreciate, and we have all had to live through and adapt our working environments and our methodologies to deal with the pandemic situation, and UCD is no different and no exception to that rule. Whilst we have adhered to government regulations and there is the possibility of being able to return to physical campus presence, because of the uncertainty and because of the potential uncertainty in the minds of students, we have decided that we will go live and remote. We will not be recording lectures, but we'd prefer to emulate the reality of what we were doing. In that respect, our course was still ongoing live in the normal way when effectively the week commencing the 9th of March, COVID-19 happened, and we immediately transferred to live teaching. And we didn't record any lectures, but we had all of our students, many of whom were frontline staff, and all of our lecturers had agreed to go live, and that continued towards the end of the course, and it worked very successfully. The difference between the group coming in September and our past groups is that the past groups knew each other. They had met each other physically and had formed a very close bond. That's another part of the course that's very important to us, and that's the close connection between the multidisciplinary groups of students that come together, and it's a very, very important connection that you will have with one another. From September onwards and for the foreseeable weeks, that is September to December, you're not going to have the physical opportunity to have the physical bond with your colleagues and other students, but we will encourage you to maintain contact with your students through WhatsApp groups and through the use of online technologies. And that is the plan, that September to December 2020, we will be live and we will be remote. That is the default situation, unless things definitively change, and we will not make any changes without your input. We will revise the situation in December for those continuing on to the graduate diploma, and we will take it from there. But you will have access to all of the facilities and all of the material in the normal way, simply that you will be able to do this from the comfort of your own homes or wherever you might choose. For this, you will obviously need to have a good broadband connection. You will need to have access to a camera, as we're doing today, and you'll need to have microphones. And at this stage, I imagine most of you are experts at the use of Zoom, which is the platform we are going to be using. I mentioned to you earlier on that we have been lucky enough to have support, the support of senior members of the bench, in other words, the higher courts, at various occasions in our teaching and also at other occasions. And just to give you a little spread here of the people that have come to visit us. Last year in October, as part of this course, you'll see on the top left-hand side, we very luckily had the presence of Judge Kevin Cross, who's a judge of the High Court, is in charge of the personal injuries list, and is one of the, really has been involved in some of the seminal judgments in medical negligence over the last 5 or 6 years, to talk to us about a view from the bench about medical negligence, his personal perspectives, and what he expected from the people that interact with the courts, in a very lively discussion. In many of the discussions where we invite outside guests of this nature, we turn those evenings into an invited session. So instead of having just your colleagues, we have a number of other guests involved as well, so that we can have a lively discussion. And we had a huge amount of questions and discussions from members of the press and other people, and an opportunity for all of you then to interact with the audience and our invited speakers to really try and delve into some of the issues. And Judge Cross was very generous with his time. We usually organize graduation ceremonies at which we have guest speakers, and you'll see sort of in the pictures Judge Charles Meenan, who is another judge of the High Court and an expert in medical negligence, and was tasked by the court system to look at alternative mechanisms of recovery of damages, resulting in his report that recommended the Cervical Check Tribunal, and also gave us a very interesting talk about the potential work of the tribunal. The year before that, Senator Michael McDowell, Senior Counsel, who was previously the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, talked about the case of PP and the HSE, which you'll remember, some of you will remember, was a case in relation to a pregnant lady who was brain dead. And it wasn't so much about the facts of the case, but it was about the duty of doctors to work within an ethical model without reliance on law. And it was very controversial, but a very practical talk. The year before that, we had Judge Mary Irvine, who is now the President of the High Court, again to talk about reforms in medical negligence and how things might move on, and her view of how the courts would work. And Mary Irvine, when she was Senior Counsel, was an expert in medical negligence defense work, and now has been the only female, although that's not something anybody should really be surprised about in this day and age, but was a judge of the High Court, was a judge of the Supreme Court, was nominated to be the chairperson of the Cervical Check Tribunal, and is now the President of the High Court, the first female President of the High Court. So an absolutely fantastic individual, and we were privileged to have her to talk to us. And also in last year, we had Seamus Wolfe, the just departed Attorney General, to talk about upcoming reforms. So we do our best to keep a very interactive dialogue open with members of the legal and medical professions to really try and get the main stakeholders in the fields in UCD and in close connection with you, so that you can have a chat with them and really get a hands-on experience and a visceral experience of what happens on the ground. So that's the type of the ethos of the course that we keep. For those continuing after December, or for those who have registered from the outset in relation to the Graduate Diploma of Healthcare, we add to Term 1, which is the professional certificate, by looking at the issues of clinical risk management. And we really have a wonderful selection of external lectures. Most of the course is taught by experts in the fields of patient safety, governance, and clinical risk management. We'll look at principles of patient safety. We'll look at the risks, the clinical risks as they apply to the main high-risk categories of medicine. We look at the management and assessment of risks. We look at issues of quality and risk assessment, how to do risk assessments, and we look at insurance, indemnity, and the ethos of claims management and the implementation of the risk management process. Again, we're lucky to have some of the main stakeholders in the fields involved, and they are also involved on the course. And again, the graduate diploma allows people to dip their feet into the specialist areas and to gain knowledge of the main aspects of clinical risk management. Again, the ethos we're pushing you towards is to be able to identify succinctly and quickly issues of risk that you come across in your work, and to be able to deal with them, to be able to gain the resources you require to resolve problems in the most efficient way possible. And really, anybody involved in the areas of patient safety and risk management, much of the discipline, it's a very wide discipline, but is the ability of your ability to be able to bring the resources to bear to resolve what sometimes can be complex problems, but which don't really necessarily provide hugely complex solutions. So the idea of this course is to give you the tools to be able to see that vision, to really cut through the red tape and to see what it is you can do to try and assess issues, problematic issues in advance, and bring solutions to the table. And it's something we push you very hard with. We use a mix of teaching methodologies, continuous assessment evaluations, case study presentations, and a very strong emphasis on a pilot professional project, which is examined by stakeholders in the field. You have a viva at the end in April and May. So the evaluation is by external examiners and stakeholders in the field. Again, we emphasize practical knowledge. The people that we bring to the course are the relevant stakeholders, members from the HSE, the Medical Council, clinical risk managers, and others from the State Claims Agency to talk about their perspectives of what they would expect from those working in the field. We use blended learning and again, lectures, discussions, roundtable sessions. So the structure of the course, Trimester 1 is the professional certificate in medical legal aspects of healthcare. We start in September, we finish in December. Normally, the structure of the course is that we require you to have a campus presence every Wednesday from 6 until 9:30, 9:45, every Wednesday. The change this time is we're going to do exactly the same to emulate that existing structure, except this will be remote but live. So you may access the course from wherever you are once you have a broadband connection with a camera and a microphone. Those, as I say, exiting in December will do so with the professional certificate in medical legal aspects of healthcare. Those who are registered to the graduate diploma or those transferring from the certificate to the graduate diploma will then commence again in January 2021 for the graduate diploma in healthcare risk management and quality. The timetable remains the same. We finish that course trimester 3 in mid-June, early to mid-June, depending on how the dates pan out and depending on how things go with the pandemic situation. And then, and only then, some students may be eligible for the MSc. The MSc part of the program is not open to everybody. It's by competitive entry, and we already have a waiting list of people to do it. The numbers are limited and they're capped, and it is dependent on the proposal that you put in for the MSc. It is a taught master's, but it's by thesis only. So effectively, it's the 4th module of the graduate diploma. And any candidate who is successful in the MSc leaves with an MSc in, that should be MSc in Healthcare Risk Management and Quality as opposed to the graduate diploma. So that's the structure of the program. Many of you have already contacted us and you've had a chat with Danielle, you've been in touch with her by email, and you've heard from me as well. So these are, in this day and age, this is our email address. We are approachable at the best of times, and we very much look forward to hearing from you in relation to any queries you may have even after today's session. And I'm really delighted that many of you have taken the time to come and listen to this very short presentation today. I'm going to now pass the floor, the virtual floor, back to Stephen, but I'll be very happy to take any questions or to have any discussions for the next while. Many thanks, everyone.